Hi, it's Rick Hansen here with Amazing Greats. Thanks for joining us today. Our guest is Keith Koldsbaek. He's grown up around speed. That's his game. High octane actually runs in his veins. From go-karts to NASCAR, he's a legend in the racing business. With over 4 decades of making cars run at peak performance, he shares some of that story along with his personal story and Jesus' journey here on Amazing Greats. Thanks to Unlimited Hydro icon Chip Hanauer, who gave us Keith's information and suggested we give him a call, and he's here with us today. Here we are on Amazing Greats, and yes, we have a special guest today, Keith Koldsbaek. It is a pleasure to have you on the show here today because I've heard so many things about you through one of our legends here in the Northwest, Chip Hanauer, who tells me you are like the who's who of NASCAR. And so we're going to find out all about that story, your Christian journey, your personal life, and all of that's going to happen here in the next 35 minutes or so. So welcome, Keith. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Cool. Let's start with that. So I was explaining to you, and I'm a Northwest guy. For some unknown reason, NASCAR and drag racing have not gotten traction here. So I want you to tell your racing story. You've been in this world of drag racing for decades. Um,
NASCAR.
let's and NASCAR. So let's start with where it all started. How did you have an interest as a boy in automobiles and racing?
Our family lived in Bellevue and Seattle when I was younger, and we moved down to Huntington Beach, California. And I have a twin brother, Kenny, and him and I just somehow got interested in the Indianapolis 500 because back then, the only races you could see on TV were the Indy 500, Grand Prix of Monaco, and Formula One, and then the Daytona 500. So, but for some reason, the Indianapolis 500 was, was a big deal, and just glued to the TV whenever that was on, and getting the sports page and seeing who was fast every day and practice during the month of May, and that led to a dad, can we get a go kart? And then it was dad, can we go race the go kart? And then it was dad, we need a faster go kart, and it somehow snowballed from there. And then we'd moved from Seattle to Huntington Beach, which said my dad had a business that was 15 minutes away in Costa Mesa, and this just happened to be the proving ground for hot rodding and racing was in Southern California at that time.
So what age were you when you moved away from Seattle?
10 years old, 1970.
So you remember hydroplane racing in Seattle?
I remember hydroplanes on Green Lake.
Oh, really?
My
Okay.
grandparents lived just above Green Lake, and me and my brother, being 5, 6 years old, would walk down to Green Lake unescorted as we did back then. And yeah, I remember on Green Lake, and then of course Seafair in Seattle. That was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we had 64 funny cars. Do you remember those days? That
We
that
had so we had that also in Huntington, in California at Orange County International Raceway. Yeah, we
okay.
get 64 funny cars. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's the exposure that I had as a youngster
yeah,
is
yeah,
unlimited hydros and 64 funny cars. Yeah.
yeah. That's a good growing up.
Yeah. So where along the way did NASCAR come into the picture?
I guess you got to go a little bit further. Um, Grew up in California, got a job with a guy named Art Chrisman after high school, building hot rods. And from Art Chrisman's building hot rods, I had a couple of friends that worked for Dan Gurney's All American Racers, which was 10 minutes from our shop. Um, that was probably the hardest day of my life, was having to quit Art Chrisman because he's still my favorite boss ever. He allowed I mean me and us, to make mistakes, and you didn't get in trouble. You just learn from it. So fortunately, my new boss was friends with Art Chrisman. His name is Phil Remington, and it was cool. And I went there, and that was Indy cars and sports cars. Um, so did that for a while, and then I really wanted to go to Formula One in Europe, which was that was difficult. Ended up going down to Nissan in Vista, California, which is by San Diego, because they were going to go Formula One racing. And that lasted 3 years, I think. 92, I think 93. No, 92. And then 93 went to Indy cars with Arciero Racing. And then that folded. And I said, I'm going to go live someplace where if they don't like me or I don't like them, I don't have to move. And that was Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's, I didn't know anybody when I moved here. I've never been to a race. I just knew that I could do the work.
And
So
what
that
is
was
what
that was
what's
94.
what has been your role in the world of race cars for the most part? Has it changed over time?
Yes. So back when we started, you built everything yourself. You started with a sheet of material or a piece of tubing out of the rack, and you got a drawing from the engineering, and you made a fixture for for the drawing, and then you made the part. And
Wow.
if you fast forward to today, everything comes out of catalog. So we literally don't make anything anymore. So I basically went from a mechanic and a fabricator, mostly a fabricator, to now just being a mechanic.
Uh-huh. So you keep the cars running and running as fast as they possibly can?
That's our goal.
Gotcha. So your beginnings were, when we were on the phone on a kind of a pre-call, um, you had one little fascinating kind of story after another that just were very intriguing. And one of them was at birth, there was an interesting scenario going on there. Can you tell us about that?
I was Me and my brother are twins. My mom and dad didn't get along, so they split up. This is 1960. My mom couldn't afford us, so she was going to put us up for adoption. And this is probably 62, I get 61. We were 1 or 2 years old. And my grandfather on my dad's side said, we'll take them. So my grandma and grandpa lived in New Westminster, Canada. And we went to live with them. And then they moved down to Seattle. So at the age of 4, we moved to Seattle. At the age of 6, my dad shows up with my stepmom and my stepbrother. And like, this is your mom now, this is your brother. And I'm like, that's not my mom, that's not my brother.
So did your dad have a change of heart, or how did that come about that he decided that he wanted you back in his family?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably because he now had somebody to take care of us, his new wife.
His new wife. Okay.
Yeah, he was a traveling salesman, so he was gone 3 out of 4 weeks of the month.
And growing up then with this new family, how did that work? How was that?
It was a struggle.
Was it?
Yeah,
Until what time were you able to escape the struggle? Did you
as
move
soon as
out
I
at
turned
18?
18.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually 16, because then you get a car and you can have your own life. But yeah, the second I turned 18, I lowered my suitcase out the window of the second story and walked around downstairs and walked out the back door and left.
What about Kenny? What happened with Kenny?
He's right here right now. We live 30 minutes apart. He kind of did the same route,
Did
racing
he
and racing and racing, and ended up in North Carolina also.
did he crawl out the window with you or
No, I went first.
okay?
But he has a composite shop, carbon fiber. He bakes parts for from Harley Davidsons to airplanes to race cars, just a whole bunch of cool stuff.
During the struggle with the new family that you were kind of brought back into, where was your faith story in that? Was there anything going on in terms of Christianity in your life at that point?
We're heavily on Lake Hills Baptist Church, and Bible study was at our house every Wednesday. Church on Sunday morning. Um, Pretty strong. And of course, my grandfather had smuggled Bibles into Europe during World War II, and my grandmother was. This is the hippie days in Seattle, early '60s, and we got one of those. Um, I don't know, it was a necklace, but it was really cool. And I remember my grandmother saying, "You can't wear that around your grandfather because that's the Antichrist or something like that." It was just
Oh,
okay. We weren't even allowed to play cards. We couldn't have cards in the house. So yeah, Bible study our house, church every Sunday. and was solid. And then when we moved to California, and you know what California is like, we tried to find a local, fun, Bible preaching church, which I don't know if there is any in California. And we went to church after church after church after church, and then finally our parents just stopped going.
Hmm.
So that was early 70s, 12, 13 years old. And then yeah, you just, I mean, I was faithful, just didn't go to church, read the Bible. But until my daughter was born in 1995, that's when it finally hit me. When you find out what love means when you have a child.
Yeah. Yeah. So was there a kind of pivotal moment or a kind of a come to Jesus awakening at that point, or was it a gradual
No,
growing?
absolutely, it was a light switch.
Oh,
Well, yeah, when we brought her home, it was, yeah, it was over. It was good.
yeah. But and that leads us into this next little story, which is the mother, your daughter's Kaitlyn, the mother of Kaitlyn and you never did actually consummate a marriage, right?
We never got married. There's twice we were supposed to get married. People had flown in, and she didn't choose me.
What?
But yeah, so it's cool. We're still friends. Yeah, she changed her mind twice.
Oh my gosh.
So we never got married. We never went to court. We never had to take care of everything because I did what was right. I always paid for everything. Kaitlyn always had insurance. I paid child support based on what I made for 18 years.
How did you navigate the idea of your faith and not having uh, had the marriage? Did it bother you at all, or
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
But that's one of the things that changed me around. And I
So
and I'm not going to judge either. I mean, we've all fallen short, and we do it every single day. So you know, I guess that's a life experience that you can share with somebody or keep to yourself. But try not to judge.
yeah, so great. That is, yeah, true. So did Caitlin then live with mom more or with you more?
She lived with her mom mostly full time. I got her anytime I wanted on the weekends. It was a completely we were good with each other. I took Kaitlyn on for her birthday. I would take a week off work, and we usually went to a foreign country, not just a birthday party. We would go to El Salvador or Europe, or we actually even went to Seattle, and visited Chip.
And you and your daughter are still very close, as I
Very
understand.
close. Yeah, yeah, very close.
Yeah. So during the so in 1995, you were still working in this whirly, swirly, crazy world of race cars. Doesn't seem like that's a breeding ground for spirituality, but I could be wrong. But how did you kind of navigate the two worlds?
Well, it isn't. There's something called MRO, which is Motor Racing Outreach.
Oh,
And yeah, there's chapel service every Sunday morning at the track. We have a Bible study. I work at Hendrick Motorsports, and we're 550 people, but there's a Bible study in a different section of the complex every single day. Our days are Thursdays. Thursdays from 9 to 9:15 is a quick little Bible study.
that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And is there a pastor that, floats from
Yep.
one Bible study to the next kind of
It's
thing?
the same. We actually have a pastor on campus.
Really?
Yeah, Rick Hendrick and Linda Hendrick are that's something they're passionate about.
Nice. And they're still actively involved. I mean, they're running the show, the Hendricks.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. 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 So along the way, and sometimes it's looking back and recognizing that God was involved in some way in decisions that you made. Is there a time or a few times that you can say that was God's direction that I was following?
Every day, every day. Not so much when you're younger, but when you get older, you start to recognize things. So I don't know how much time we have. One cool story that happened. Yesterday or the day before, Chip Hanauer calls me and he says, "Do you think any of your NASCAR drivers would like to drive the boat?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll ask." And we had Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane, and Jeff Gordon at the time. So my first thought is I'll go ask Casey because he's from Enumclaw, Washington. He's got to be a boat guy. Who doesn't come from Washington and not be a boat guy?
Yeah, exactly.
So I asked Casey, and he's like, "I don't want nothing to do with those guys because those guys are nuts." I'm like, "Oh." So I asked Dale Jr. He said, "Absolutely not." And then I ran into Jimmy, and I said, "Jimmy," I said, "I got a friend. They're trying to raise some money for the Unlimited Hydroplane Museum. They thought it'd be cool if they got a NASCAR driver to drive the boat." And he almost teared up. And I go, "What?" He goes, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "No." I said, I got a friend, Chip Hanauer, and they take this Atlas fan lines out and they do things with it. And would you be interested in driving it?" He goes, "I got to tell you a story." I'm like, "What's that?" So Jimmy Johnson is from El Cajon, California. And for his birthday, he would have his dad take him to Mission Bay every single year to watch the boats.
Wow.
Who would have thought that? 10 years old, he's into motocross, he's into dirt, but he loved the boats. So he's 9 or 10 years old at Mission Beach. Bill Muncey and the Atlas van lines, motor shuts off during a heat race. He floats over towards the beach. And some people go out there to catch the boat so he doesn't run up on the beach. And Jimmy's dad takes him and sets him on the sponson of the boat. And Muncey's standing on the front of it, being Bill. And someone gets a picture of it. And there's a picture of Jimmy on the boat with his yellow supercross hat, motocross hat. The world goes round. Like, friends with Chip, working for Jimmy. Chip says, "Do you want to driver's fit?" Jimmy, like, "Are you kidding me?" And they met again this week, last night or the night before, and it never happened. It never materialized. But now, since Jimmy's got a limited schedule, it looks like it might happen.
Wow.
So that something you talk about circumstances. Chip and I have been friends since the early '90s. Jimmy through NASCAR. Me, if I wasn't the guy working for Jimmy, just happened to be friends with Chip. Chip calls me, asks me. I asked Jimmy. That connection would have never happened, and Jimmy gets to fulfill a dream, a passion that he had since he was a little boy.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great
So
story.
it's
Yeah.
going to be. I'm excited.
Yeah. Is this and I don't know if you know the details of the Hydro Museum, but is this they do kind of demo races on a variety of places. One of them is Lake Chelan,
Yeah,
and I know that's in October. And they bring out all the old boats and do demos, and it's quite an amazing event. And it
I've
sells
seen
out. I
videos.
mean, it's huge.
I think this is going to happen in San Diego.
Oh, okay. I think the nostalgia for hydros is stronger than hydros. Just the memories from those days where we all used to huddle around a TV set somewhere in black and white and watch the hydros go round and round, and usually ends up in a parade of hydros, which is kind of typical of hydroplane racing. But nonetheless, we were mesmerized by this thing called unlimited hydroplane racing. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So you and Chip, now how had you known each other?
He was a crossing guard at school, and he used to beat me up for lunch money. He'll deny it though if you ask him. He besides that, he retired from boats for a little while. I don't even know how he got hooked up with a friend of mine called Dennis Ossie, and he wanted to go road racing. And Dennis Ossie had a Toyota program for guys just like Chip. And Circus Circus came on board for the first year on Chip's car. And they had Parnelli Jones was his teammate, PJ Jones, Juan Fangio, John Morton, all these heroes of everybody's drove for Dennis, and Chip got to drive. And I worked at that time with Dan Gurney's All American Racers, but I was also friends with Dennis, who ran the program, Firehawk program that Chip drove in, and we just connected through that.
Hmm. And you're good friends to this day.
Absolutely. I talked to him yesterday.
We were going to talk about this later, but we'll talk about it now. You're going to actually have an adventure with Chip coming up in this summer. Tell us about the excitement that's happening in your life with Chip this summer.
So he turns 70
Oh,
on July 1st, and so for his 70th birthday, you're gonna have to help me. It's called Camp
Muir.
Muir Base Camp,
Yeah,
and I think it's 10,000 feet.
could be.
And yeah, we're gonna do that hike for his birthday.
Wow. Yeah. And is he in good enough shape to handle that at 70? Have you any
We're
idea?
about to find out. I
Yeah.
run marathons with my dog, so it's up to Chip to be in shape to do some hiking.
Yeah. And let's good transition. Thank you. Marathons with your dog.
Yes,
Wait a minute. What's that all about? So you have a dog. Her name is Bella,
yes.
and Bella is a runner.
Bella
Okay.
is a long-haired dachshund. She weighs, when she's super in shape, she's 12 and 3/4 pounds, and when she's heavy, she's 14 and a half. And my daughter rescued her from underneath a mobile home and paid $50 for her. And I'd never had a dog in my life. And so I thought that dogs need to be outside. So we started being outside and we go for walks. And she's over there complaining right now. She's not outside. And I go, man, this would go a lot faster if we'd run. And I used to play soccer. I played soccer all the way to college. So I know how to run. And we started running and she loved it. And so, yeah, couch to 5K, couch to 10K, couch to half marathon. I found a half marathon that was all downhill in the mountains here in North Carolina. And she acted like it was recess. It was easy. And then we got carried away and she's done 5 complete marathons.
My gosh, on those short little legs.
Yeah. Bella, come here. Come here.
Yeah, let's see
Come here.
Bella. Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
she is so sweet looking. How old is she now?
She's she was 14 in November.
14 and
Yeah.
running marathons and half marathons,
Still.
even to
Yeah, we
this
don't do the
day.
marathons anymore. We're big on half marathons though.
Yeah. Somewhere I saw you did 5 marathons with Bella and then more like 40 or 50 half marathons, right?
Correct. Yeah, the last one we ran was in December.
Wow. And do you have anything else on the docket for this year?
Everything. Now that the sun's staying out longer, we'll start running longer distances.
And how are you faring through all that?
She usually pulls me along pretty good.
I was going to ask who paces who, right?
Yeah, in the summer it gets pretty hot here and humid in North Carolina, and it can be just miserable. It'll be 90 degrees and 60% humidity. You're just dripping sweat, and she never checks up. And so we'll run a little bit slower. I go at her pace in the summer, and then in the winter, we're probably 3 minutes a mile faster than we are in the summer.
Wow. And what was there special uh food? Is there special
Oh, food, yeah, yeah. So I was trying to figure out what to do with her because I didn't want to kill her because I liked her a little bit, and so I was trying to think of what dogs run as far as she does. I mean, on a good week we can do 60 miles, a bad week 20. And the only dog I could think of was the sled dogs. So I contacted some people in Alaska, two different sled dog people. I'm like, what do you feed these dogs? And they're like chicken and salmon and frozen rice. They use frozen rice to hold water. Um, but yeah, so her 80% of her diet is chicken and salmon that I cook every day.
wow. And at night is she pooped? I mean, is she ready for some slumber?
No, she never gets tired, ever, ever, never. I've never
Wow.
seen her tired. She's never stopped. She's never quit, and she's never complained.
Man, what a sweetheart. That is so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Somewhere I read or saw that in a couple of years ago she had run 1,600 miles or something like that. Is that
A couple years
possible?
ago, yeah, that was a total.
Total for the year? or total
Yeah.
forever?
No, just for the year.
1,600 miles in a year.
Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That is so great. And then there's some foot wraps that you use when you're running.
Pet, it's called pet wrap. It's like a gauze, and I just put it on the front because that's where all the weight is if we're running on concrete. But if we're on trails or snow or sand, nothing at all.
Then another part of the Keith story, which is interesting and intriguing, is you are married now, but you live in North Carolina and she lives on the West Coast. You've been married for a year and a half. How's that working out?
She just left last night. So we met in high school, 15 years old. We're 64 years old now. Be 65 in January. Another weird fact is she was born January 28th. I was born January 30th. We're literally 48 hours apart on births.
Wow.
Um, she's a nurse, a neonatal nurse, and so she can schedule her work days at the beginning of one week and the end of another week, and basically be out here for 7 or 8 days. And then when I take vacation or holiday, then I can go back that way. And it's working out good. I mean, we get along, but as soon as we retire, we'll probably be in the same place at the same time all the time.
There you go. Wow. And how about her faith story? Is that congruent with
Man,
yours?
she no, she's the same thing. She teaches Bible study. All of her kids, her grandkids are involved in the church. Um, she's she's a rock.
Huh. Uh, were you married? You were married, obviously, in the church in North Carolina, Elevation. Were you?
No, out in Vista,
Oh, okay.
California. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
My daughter and my nieces and all my friends flew out there.
And so that was your first marriage.
Actually, it was my second marriage.
Oh.
My first marriage was to Satan, and which is weird because we met in church, and then
Oh,
it was it was bad.
really? And you knew that
Yeah.
pretty much from the get-go?
No, the day after we got married, you tell people tell stories like that. Oh, everything was wonderful, and then once we got married, it was like this. That's my story.
What?
Went to bed the night of our wedding, got up the next day, and everything's different.
Really?
And I was like, "Whoa, where'd that person come from?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad. It lasted less than a year.
Wow. And did you consult with the Lord about all of
Oh,
that?
absolutely. We went to three different counselings, church, everybody. I mean, everything. I tried everything, but she was like this.
Wow. Wow. Well, so in everybody's story, there's that light switch. In everybody's story, there's that light switch moment, which you already described is when Kaitlyn was born. Uh,
Yeah,
and then there's also those moments that along the way you say, where was God in this? And an unanswered prayer, some struggle that you couldn't quite figure out where it was coming from. Maybe that's marriage was one of them. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm grateful. I'm absolutely grateful for all the times I've been told no, and I'm grateful for all the people that didn't like me. Um, like I said, when I worked for Art Chrisman and when I worked for Phil Remington at Gurney's, they allowed me to make mistakes. And then once you make a mistake, you either learn from it or you don't, but the good ones learn. And I think it's the same thing with what we're going through in life. You can either let it beat you up or you can like, what's the message here? What am I supposed to learn from this? So yeah, it hurts at the time, but after some time, it becomes okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So on your on your now continuing journey, what's going to be next for you? Do you have any idea?
Everything. Dee Dee and I want to have some sort of purpose that we do together to serve. Um, when we, she'll probably keep working. She works 20 hours a week. Um, I have a bunch of friends that I can help once I'm retired in January.
Yeah.
That's are different forms of motorsports, and yeah, we'll find that path together.
Yeah. Well, see now, when you and I first spoke on the phone prior to this, you said, I don't know if I have much of a story. And then you started telling these stories, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's
I
got
still don't think
stories.
I have a story.
I love them all. And the fact that you found Jesus during this journey, and that you have become a believer and a devout believer, is just a testament to who you are and what kind of story you've woven over these last decades. So I want to thank you so much for sharing. I so it's July 1st, you're going to be on the mountain.
Yes.
So I can be praying for you that you return, and you're not
Yeah,
bringing.
yeah, and yeah. One other thing, the I think our whole Dee Dee and I agree on this is our goal is just to make heaven a little bit more crowded. That's what we try and do every day.
Love that. I love that. So Dee Dee, will she be there in the Northwest at that time or not really?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
she
yeah,
will.
yeah.
And how about Bella? Where's Bella going to be?
She'll have to be there because I don't leave her with anybody.
Oh,
She's
really?
never been in a cage. She's never, if she goes to the groomer, I said she's got to go straight through. Tell me what time to pick her up. She's 90% off leash. So
Wow.
yeah, I want to make sure she lives her best life just like we're doing.
Yeah. And Kaitlyn will be there too in the Northwest?
No, no,
No,
no.
she's not going to make it. Okay.
She's a vet tech. She works her butt off.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Yeah,
So is she your, do you go to her vet,
absolutely.
Bella? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Keith, and sharing your story. And I'll let you know when it's going to publish. Um,
Thank you.
God bless you, and Dee
Thank
Dee
you.
and Bella and Kaitlyn. Like I think I like know them all now, um, because they have such an interesting part of your story. So, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Keith.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So interesting. Keith's a guy who totally gets it, loves what he does, lives life to the fullest, and enjoys the journey. NASCAR Bible studies, marathons with his best friend, and a bi-coastal marriage. His story is truly amazing. Thanks for joining us today on Amazing Greats. Share with your friends, and we have a whole lot more coming up on Amazing Greats in the weeks to come. Thanks for listening. God bless.